Oh, so kind, thank you. I have a unique cocktail going on at the moment. I appear to have developed a cold, that like dry cough that I think lots of you are also experiencing, and hay fever has just arrived at the same time. So I woke up this morning and sort of coughed and sneezed at the same time. So I apologise if I cough and sneeze at the same time. There's not really anything we can do about it now, but yeah, we'll see how it goes. We are in a series called Fearless, but before we start that, I would love to just add one extra thing to those extensive notices that we had. I didn't want Warren and Pippa to have to do everything. Um, we are going to, ahead of our next Alpha term, which starts, I think, on the 14th of May, we're going to have a sort of Alpha launch event, sort of exactly a week beforehand on the 8th of May. And basically, we would love everybody in this room to come, and we would love you to bring anybody who you think might want to come. It's not just if you want to invite them to Alpha, but particularly if you think you could invite them to Alpha. And basically, we're calling it the Big Fabric Pub Quiz, because it's us, Fabric, and we're going to do a big pub quiz. And there will be a food option, and I think we've got a burrito van coming. And yes, there you go, game changer. Those four people are here already. Great. And we would love you to come. And we're going to make this just the most accessible, the most fun, the most easy to invite people along to space. So if you've got some mates who you know might come to Alpha, but one of the big pieces would be, I would love them to know that this place is full of normal people and doing normal stuff, then this might be a really easy way to sort of bridge that gap. So we would just love it. We think it's a really exciting thing to do. The really long term, this term actually gives us the ability to do something in summer which we don't normally get to do, which is do something like this beforehand. So please, come along, eat a burrito, try and win the pub quiz. We're thinking at the moment we might have the Easter puppets might come out and act out scenes from well-known films, and you have to guess what those films are. I won't tell you any of the other rounds, but and we are in this. We're in this series of exploring what it means to be fearless. As you've walked in downstairs, you'll have seen our 5 values that we think God's calling us as a culture to be in this sort of new church that we've started. And we want to be a fun, free, filled, fearless family. And so we've been digging into what it means to be fearless. So we talked about fearless family, which is just a cheat of like ticking 2 of those off in one go. And then last week, Warren gave us the most amazing challenge. If you've not seen it, it's available online, and you can watch it back, about what it means to be fearless evangelists. Which is just a long word, for saying fearless at telling the story of what God has done in our lives to the people we meet as part of our everyday existence. And then today we're going to talk about fearless faith, what it means to be fearless in our belief of what God could and would and might and should and will do in this city as a result of us being in this city and us being filled full of Him in this city. So we're gonna dig in to this, but it's sort of this is not exactly a sort of like classic vision talk, but it's kind of just a moment for us to stop and to think through what is this vision of this thing that we are doing. And this church that we're all part of, this movement that is growing, this thing that started in a dingy nightclub 400 meters that way, and now we get to meet in this expansive space. We've got more people in the room that we ever have before this morning, which is definitely not about the numbers, but it's encouraging that it's growing. And it's a good moment to stop and to think, who is it that we're being called to be? What has God put on for us? And what is going on in the city already that we want to partner with and that we want to get on board with? So just in case you're new or you forgot from the last time, because it was me that did it the last time, so you probably can't remember because I didn't explain it properly enough, but just our top line vision is the same of the network that we've planted out of, which is a church down in London called HTB, and they've planted loads of churches, and particularly loads of churches in city centres across the UK. And the vision of that network is loads of long words that I barely understand. So it's the evangelization of the nation, the revitalization of the church, and the transformation of society, which means we want to see people come to know Jesus. We want to see the church grow, both this church and churches that we plant from this church into other places. And we want to see, as a result of that, as a result of what God's doing in us, the society around us change for the good. We want to see injustices broken down. We want to see relationships restored. We want to see addictions broken. We want to see families healed. We want to see
bodies made right in mind and soul. We want to see anything that we think is wrong, the inequalities, the injustices. We want those to start to shift. And to do that, we believe God is calling us to be a fun-free, filled, fearless family. And as we do that, we will grow, people will hear about the gospel, and the society around us will be transformed. But we've also, over this last 6 months that we've been going for, just started to sense, and it was something that we as a team and loads of others had sort of fed in, that there's a move of God going on, particularly in this part of the country at the moment. There's loads of people talking about it, not just us, not just like, yeah, come and join with us, because no, God is doing something. God is doing something. And with society the way that it is at the moment, it feels like God, the only way it's going to shift is if God does something. And we're at that place where we're starting to pray really desperate prayers of like, God, if you don't show up, like nothing's going to happen. We definitely can't do this by ourselves. I know for a fact that I definitely can't lead this by myself. I need God to show up. We believe God is on the move. We believe that revival is on its way. We believe that there's going to be a move of God across this city this year, in the coming years, and it's going to shape this city for the future. And we're so excited of what God is doing. But I'm personally convicted, and this may just be me, and I think at times it is just me. I'm personally convicted it's going to look different to maybe moves of God that we've seen in the past. I think we're transitioning out of a season where, and it's not all bad, but where there's been a lot of focus on when there's been a move of God, or when there's been a movement of some sort, that there's been these, sort of key leaders that have led the thing that then everybody's looked towards, which is not a bad thing. And those things have, many of them have been great and continue to be great. But I think there's something unique about this season. It's going to be a revival of everyone. It's not just going to be, sort of one person standing on a stage going, can you partner with me in this great vision that I've got? It's going to be this messy, uncertain, confused, but deeply radical, just everybody being filled with the Spirit, being made more bold, and everybody going out into the places and spaces where they live and work. And that's going to be the thing that's going to shift this city. My son, in the unexpected prophetic way that he has, while he was bored, while we were having a prayer meeting earlier before the service, made a bee and came and gave it to me. And barely even acknowledged me. He was just like, Dad, bee, and just handed it to me. And I was like, oh, it's a little origami bee. And I was just watching this bee during worship that I'd put on this stand, and I didn't even know why. And it just reminded me afresh that, bee, which is the symbol of this city that we're here, this sort of, icon of like hard work. Actually, they exist in a community where everybody is equal. Everybody plays an equal part. Everybody gets involved. Everybody has a part to play. And yes, there's a queen. Yes, there's someone in charge. But I promise you, in this community, if the analogy is the hive, the queen is not me. The queen, there we go. Don't put that as the main thing on Instagram for next week. There you go. Catch up on last week's talk. The queen is not me. The queen is God, who is here in our midst, and is in, that we are serving, that we are getting filled up for, that we are doing everything for. That's the analogy. That's what God has laid on my heart for this community. That's what's behind, our name, and the story about that name is that our beauty and our strength is in the diversity and and everybody being just themselves and coming together in this profound way. So that's the longest introduction of any talk ever. And so the question for this talk is, how do we do it? How do we go about having fearless faith in a city that so desperately needs us to have fearless faith? How can we believe that God can and will do something in our generation in this place? And so we're going to look at this passage in John. It's the first miracle that Jesus ever does in a place called Cana in Galilee. So if you've got your Bibles, it's John 2, verses 1 to 12. It's going to come up on the screen. It's on our app as well. It's a very fun app. And I'm going to read it out for us. John chapter 2. On the third day, a wedding took place at Cana in Galilee. Jesus' mother was there. And Jesus said to his disciples, who had also been invited to the wedding, when the wine was gone. And his disciples had also been invited to the wedding. There's lots of info here. When the wine was gone, Jesus' mother said to him, they have no more wine. Woman, why do you involve me? It's fair to say that this has aged badly, that particular line. It's just, there's no getting out of that, is there? Let's move on. Jesus replied, "My hour has not yet come." His mother said to the servants, who were still talking to him for some reason, his mother said to the servants, "Do whatever he tells you." Nearby stood 6 stone water jars, the kind used by the Jews for ceremonial washing, each holding from 20 to 30 gallons. Jesus said to the servants, "Fill the jars with water." So they filled them to the brim. Then he told them, "Now draw out some and take it to the master of the banquet." They did so, and the master of the banquet tasted the water that had been turned into wine. He did not realize where it had come from, though the servants who had drawn the water knew. Then he called the bridegroom aside and said, "Everyone brings out the choice wine first, and then the cheaper wine after the guests had had too much to drink. But you have saved the best till now." What Jesus did here in Cana of Galilee was the first of the signs through which he revealed his glory, and his disciples believed in him. After this, he went down to Capernaum with his mother and brothers and his disciples, and they stayed there for a few days. And I'd love to talk to you this morning about Mary. I think sometimes Mary can be given this almost key but almost passive role in the Gospels as we read the story of her and Jesus and everything that happened. We can almost, it can almost sometimes seem like she loses some of her agency, like some of this stuff she just has to do. And actually, I think this is a beautiful passage that shows she is in full control and she is the most inspiring person. She is somebody who is fearless in the faith that she has of what God can and will do in and with and through her. And I think there's 3 things that we can learn to help us have fearless faith from the way that she has fearless faith in this passage. So we're going to go through all 3. So number 1, Mary had vision. Jonathan Swift, who wrote Gulliver's Travels, said this: "Vision is the art of seeing what is invisible to others." It's the ability of how to see something or how to see someone as they aren't now, that maybe the rest of the world can't see that could be that place. I'd love to show you a picture. This is a park near where we used to live in Birmingham. It's called Worley Woods. And you can see there's this ring of massive trees all the way around. And this is a really inadequate picture, but it goes all the way around this square park. And it's got this beautiful hill in it, and it was our dog's favourite place to go. And he would love to go there and run up and down the hill. And I was told once about the origin of this park. And basically what happened was, there was just this massive big swathe of land that really didn't have much on it at all. But a local landowner knew that it was going to redevelop. This was like 200 years ago, knew that it was going to redevelop, knew that houses were going to be built everywhere as the city grew. And he said the people of this area, which is quite a deprived area in Birmingham, so the people in this area are going to need somewhere where they can go, where they can do recreation, where they can be free. And so it was his land. And so he said, to protect this for generations, what I'm going to do is I'm going to plant oak trees in this huge square all around this area, so it would be impossible for anyone to take this off the people of Worley Woods, of this part of Birmingham. And he died, and those oak trees are only like this sort of height. But he had this vision. He saw something that was beyond what was there at the moment. And now there's this enormous park that's surrounded by this amazing forest all the way around it. That, as he hoped and dreamed, is completely untouchable by any development. No one will ever let it happen. And so that thing that he gifted, that he visioned, is now exactly come to pass, but not in his lifetime, but in the future. He was able to see something that didn't yet exist. And this is exactly what Mary does in this passage. She can see who Jesus is. She can see what Jesus is capable of doing before anybody else in the room can. Interestingly, and we're in really sticky theological territory here, interestingly, potentially before Jesus even knows that he can. Or maybe he knows that he can because he says, "Woman, it's not my time yet," but he doesn't know the timeline. There's something that she's demonstrated that maybe she even knows a little bit. Isn't it beautiful that the Savior of the world, come in human form, needed others to actually do his full ministry? Isn't that the most beautiful, amazing thing ever? It doesn't show an inadequacy. It shows what glory and awesomeness looks like. I just love that. But Mary has caught a vision for who Jesus is, for what he can do, the impact that he could have, not just on this party, but on the entire world. That's why those last 2 verses in the passage are so important. It's like this was his first miracle, and his disciples believed. Those guys he'd drawn, they believed, and then everything came from that. And everything that came from that came because his mum told him to do something. So what's your vision? What's the thing that God has given to you that you can see that maybe other people can't see? Maybe it's a vision for your career or your workplace or your family. Maybe like Mary, God wants to give you a vision for your kids, to truly believe and be able to see something that they can be or that they can do or that you can encourage them into that maybe they can't see yet. Maybe it's a vision for the community that exists around you. Maybe it's a vision for this community here. Maybe it's a vision as simple as, I've got this mate and I would love them to know Jesus. So why don't, and maybe that vision might just turn into you inviting them along to our burritos and puppets doing films night. It's got a better name than that. Nicky Gumbel, who led HTB, who I had the joy of working alongside for 3 years when we were down in there, he would always ask people, do you think, like when they were going on church plants, or actually before I came into HTB, when I first met him, he asked me this, actually about this project. He said, do you think God can do it? No, actually, he said, do you think you can do it? And I was like, no. And he's like, do you think God can do it? And I said, yes. And that would be the question that he would always ask, because he longed for people to have a vision bigger than anything that they knew that they could do, but that only God could do. There's a famous church leader in America who says you should do at least one thing in your life that if God doesn't show up, you will just fall flat on your face, which is a scary thing to go about doing. I have a really good friend who lives in Birmingham. He's a pediatric oncologist, which is medical for a kid's cancer doctor, which is tough. And he's the most beautiful man, I think, that I've ever met in just his nature and who he is. I remember asking him once, Anthony, how do you do this? How do you get up in the morning? How do you do that after you can imagine what his hard days are like. How do you do that? How do you get up the next day and do about that? And he just looked at me, and we were just having a normal chat before this, and it went really deep really quickly. And a solitary little tear sort of bulged up in his eye, and he just went, Mark, some of them get better. That's the vision that he's caught for his job, that some of these kids get better. And that's what fuels him, that's what drives him, that's what he can see when no one else can see it. That there's hope, that there's healing, that there's possibility. So what's the vision that God's given you for your life or for something in your life? What's the thing that you can see that others can't see? So number one, Mary had vision. Number two, Mary had passion. And these two can overlap quite a lot, vision and passion, but it's good to differentiate them. So vision is you being able to see, or as I understand it, vision is you being able to see something that maybe somebody else can't see. Passion is a powerful or compelling emotion that drives you to something, like love or hate, and both of those can be passion. So we can have both passion and compassion, like God can soften our heart for something, but he can also break our heart for something. Passion is the thing that makes our heart swell and burst or break. It's the thing that if vision gives us this like grand picture for our lives or the lives of something, the people around us. Passion is what motivates us in the moment. It's the drive that gets us and keeps us going. I have a son called Sam who made me this, and he has a passion that I'd like to share with you. He loves to talk, do, and just generally exist in a culture where farting is just the thing that's always being mentioned or talked about or done. That's the life that he lives. That appears to be his passion. Slowly skateboarding is taking over, but there's still a strong presence of farting. So we had some friends around the other day, and they have 2 girls, and with our 2 girls that makes 4 girls, and so there's 4 girls and him, and which he's fine with most of the time, but sometimes he's just like, I just need to be a bit different. And they were playing let's run around on our imaginary horses. So they're all there like this, and they all came into the kitchen, and we're like, Rosie, what's your horse called? And she's like, Sparklehorn. It's like, Grace, what's your one called? Rainbow Horn. Like, what's yours? Sparkle Rainbow. That's not very imaginative, but I can see what we're doing. Like, Sam, what's your horse called? And he's like, Poopy McFartface. And I was like, yes. I promise to stop talking about farts in a minute. However, it turns out if you own a Echo, an Alexa type thing, Amazon, you can, through the app, find out on any one of your individual Alexas what exactly has been asked at any point in time. And they have one in their bedroom. So, in the last year, these are real. Don't tell him I've said this afterwards. He's just downstairs. These are real. He's going to come in. Everyone's going to be looking at him. These are real life things that have been asked by one of my children to the Alexa in their room. Alexa, play the song Poop in My Face. Alexa, play Mr. Farts farting around the house. Alexa, do you know that you're smelly? Alexa, open Big Fart. Alexa, do a power fart. Alexa, do a long and crispy fart. Actually quite impressed by his vocabulary. Alexa, do an angry fart. I don't even know what that looks or sounds like, but I'm going to go home and, see you later. There's no coming back from all of this, is there? The thing that passion does, or compassion, when people have their hearts softened or inspired or broken by stuff or things or people or causes, is it starts to foster this culture around them that like promotes that thing, or if it's compassion, tries to prevent that thing. It like passion grows culture around. You know, those people who are really passionate about something, when you go anywhere near them, you just start to get almost infected and excited by the thing that they're talking about. And the fascinating thing about this, passage, and we can miss it so easily, is Mary is, yes, she's got this vision for who Jesus can be, but she's also got this huge passion for a reality that's going on right in the middle of the situation. There's this culture that she's desperately wanting to defend. There's this thing going on in the middle of this, which is shame. The reason that she's so keen that Jesus knows about the wine is that the outworkings of a bridegroom and his family running out of wine would have been catastrophic. So there's evidence from sort of ancient documents that similar stuff had happened, and the bride's family would have taken the bridegroom to court because it was such a public insult to have run out of wine. It's like Fire Festival, like cubed. You know, that would have been the reality. It would have just been, they would have made documentaries about it. That time the wine ran out in the thing. It's like imagine like the most like groundbreaking, anticipated Netflix series of the year dropping. And it's just like, there's going to be a new episode every week, and everyone's talking about it, and Rotten Tomatoes is giving it like 101% for the first time ever. And you get like halfway through, and it's like, there's going to be 8 episodes, and you get to 4, and you're like, I can't wait for 5. And they just went, yeah, we've run out. I'm not going to do it anymore. That's the sort of level of like public disgust there would have been at this moment. And the perpetrators of it, or the people who are responsible for it, would have felt the most abject shame. And so what Mary is doing in this moment is saying, I am so passionate that these people don't live in that reality. I am so passionate that shame is not going to be the story in this story. So my friend Anthony, with the vision to see kids get made better when they're the sickest that they could possibly be, what he does is he shapes this culture around him because of the passion that he has, where kids are made to feel safe, they're made to feel treasured and loved, they're made to feel like there's hope and there's healing when he's in the room, because he's just so passionate about it. And so what's your passion? What's the fire that God's given you within your heart for your family or your community or your workplace that just makes you want to shape a culture to be different to how it is at the moment? Maybe you're a student going through exams at the moment, and what does it look like for you to be a person that shifts the culture of anxiety, and that my identity is completely within the results of these exams? What does it look like for you to hold a passion that shifts the culture to peace and to joy and to hope? Maybe that looks like sending like treats to your friends or having a 20-minute, fun, break or whatever. I've got a friend called Paddy, who was excellent at this, and he would always, we would go and revise together I was just telling Bucky about this, in the sub basement of Birmingham Medical School, because that was the only place where I was free of distractions. And he would always go with an old vodka bottle that he would fill up with water that hilariously looks like vodka. And so everybody else would be there just watching him, what appeared to be, drink 2 litres of vodka while revising. Which for me just made me laugh just occasionally during this moment where I really wasn't enjoying it. But what does it look like for you to bring life and wholeness and joy? What does it look like for you to speak words that shift that culture away from the outcome of these exams are everything and the only thing that you need to care about, that there's more in the world? Parents, what does it look like for you to have a culture of love and of hope and of patience? What does it look like for us to shape the culture in our workplaces, to shift it towards, places of honor and respect, talking to people that you're, making people believe that they're more about, there is more to them than just their output or their capacity, that they're worth more than that? What does it look like to push back against the gossip cultures that we have in our workplace, to celebrate people for the tiny stuff as well as the big things? What does it look like for us as a community to get so fired up with passion and compassion from God that we start trying to shift the cultures that exist in this city and this area that this church is based in around inequality and injustice? The people who work in modern day slavery and the sex trade literally meet us that way. The completely broken estates that surround this. What does it look like for us to start to shift culture? So what are the passions that God has placed on your heart? What are the things that he's broken your heart for or softened your heart towards that lead you to want to start to shift a culture? So Mary had vision, Mary had passion, and finally Mary took action. Vision, passion, action. Sometimes I'm not great at action. I'm great at having vision and passion. They're 2 things I'm good at, and then not particularly good at having action. We're live in this at the moment, me and my wife, Jo. We have decided to do because Instagram told me to, that's not entirely how I live my life, but to do one of those, 21-day calisthenics challenges when your body will look like this beforehand and this afterwards. I'm sure it won't. And so we thought we'd do that together. So we wake up early in the morning and we do like 20 minutes of exercise as well. Our kids look at us being like, what are you doing? And I have the vision for this. I can see how it, the effects that it could have. I have passion for this. Like, I feel really motivated towards this. I lack action. And so every morning at 6 o'clock, Jo Roper will get up and she'll be like, Mark, let's do our exercises like we decided. And all of a sudden, even in the context of my vision and my passion, I would just be like, nope, I do not want to. And then she'll try and give me some of her vision and passion, and I'll be like, no, I still don't want to. And like so far, she's managed to like drag me out of bed and force me to do the exercises. But it's so easy to have the first 2 and to struggle with the last. I do this all the time. And Mary's not one of those people. Mary has the vision of who God could be, of who Jesus could be, the stuff that he could do. She has the passion to not let shame perpetuate in an environment where it doesn't have to. And then she has the fearless faith to take the action. Verse 3, they have no wine. She goes to him and says, they have no wine. Verse 5, and the timing of this is fascinating. She says, to Jesus, they have no wine. He says the sentence that could be misconstrued as quite rude nowadays. I'm led to believe that it wasn't rude, it was just how they talk to each other. But, and then they never talk again. But then the next thing that we hear anyone saying is her saying to the servants, do what he says. So I'm assuming there's some form of like motherly look where, woman, it's not my time yet. She's just like, maybe it might be my time now. Okay. Do whatever he says. She has courage to act. She has courage to do something with that vision that God's given her and the passion that she feels deep within her. But again, it would be really reckless for us to not understand or not look at the context of what's happening. So this is the mother of Jesus. This is the person who was gifted some myrrh when he was just days old, some burial spices. It probably sits on a shelf somewhere in her Nazareth house. So she knows the context of what happens if she pushes him into ministry. She knows that it's probably not going to end well. She's fully aware of what's going to happen if she gets the ball rolling. And she's completely right. Like, her worst fears do end up happening. She has to front and center witness him dying for everybody. But in the context of all of that, she still says, Jesus, they have no wine. And to the servants, go and do exactly what he's told you to do. And I wonder if there's a place that we have vision and passion for, that there's something that God's given us that we're just struggling to take action in because of the context, because of the consequences, because of the things that we're worried about, which may be completely understandable. They were completely understandable for Mary. But the beautiful thing, the reason why I love this story is she pushes through those things. The reason that we're called Fabric is because there was this moment in a building that is now the restaurant for the Edwardian Hotel. It used to be the Free Trade Hall in Manchester, where on the 31st of December, 1862, a group, hundreds of mill working families stood up, not as individuals, but as one. And in the context of a unionist blockade of Confederate cotton coming out of the Deep South during the American Civil War, over there, and the context of a revival going on literally in this area here, in this city, in this region here. They said, we acknowledge that what we have been doing with processing slave-traded cotton was wrong, and we refuse to do it anymore. And the argument was, should we send the British Navy across to dismantle this embargo so we can carry on making money from that cotton? And this group of people who were already living in poverty because the cotton wasn't coming through, they said, we would rather our families starve to death than work anymore with this, this cotton, which has been picked through immoral and completely unjust means. We acknowledge that what we did before was wrong. As a result of revival, we want to make a difference and do something different to something that's, miles away. So they had this corporate vision and this corporate passion, and they took corporate action. And that was the story that just made us come alive when we heard it, and thinking and praying took us to the name that we have for this church. Mary shows us that it's all well and good to have a God-given vision and to have great passion, but if we do nothing, nothing will change. Nelson Mandela said, action without vision is only passing time. Vision without action is merely daydreaming, but vision with action can change the world. We're going to come into land because I've been talking for far too long. And thank you for putting up with me for far too long. There's just one last thing, and it's, at what point in this story does the miracle happen? We're not particularly sure, but we can be certain that it's between a couple of points. Because all we know is that Jesus says, go and get the jars and fill them up with water. So we know it's water when they fill them up. And then when they pour it out, it's wine. And actually that fits with a couple of other miracles. So we think about the feeding of the 5,000, and Jesus says, what have you got? And they say, we've got these, 5 loaves and 2 fishes. Well, just give it out. The miracle happens in the distribution. The miracle happens when we take what God has given us, whether it's our skills and abilities or our vision and our passion, and we do something with it. That's when the miracle happens. That's when we step into seeing what God can and will do. You have to go through that really, nervy process of actually taking action, of actually doing stuff before stuff starts to change, before God really starts to break in. And it's petrifying. And it's so hard. But that seems to be what God is saying through these sort of distribution sort of miracles, is that when we take action, when we do stuff, that's when the miracle starts to happen. That's when it starts to go from just addition to exponential multiplication. So what does it look like for us to have vision as individuals and corporately as a church? What does it look like for us to have passion, a God-given passion? What's God breaking your heart for? What's God moving your heart towards? And what does it look like in the context of that for us to take action? Not just huge, big things like those guys did at the Free Trade Hall, as brilliant as they are, but also the tiny little everyday things, the tiny little acts of love and kindness, of moving towards people, not away from them, of inviting people towards us instead of ignoring them. Like, what does it look like for us to be a church that is so fired up by God and then to do something with that as well? Shall we pray together? Do you want to stand?